today I'm going to show you how to use your sketchbook page to draw a grid so that you can use the grid method to draw light contours for your colored pencil drawing. I need to draw an 8 by 10 grid on this paper, which is 11 by 14 inches. So what I need to do is draw a border first. With your paper horizontal, you are going to draw a 1-inch border on the top with 2-inch borders on the sides and the bottom. The first step with the top of the border is to mark your ruler at the 1-inch mark. And your ruler needs to be aligned with the page at the 0, the top of the page with the 0, and you mark down 1 inch. With this ruler, it does have to be going off the paper a little bit. I will mark 1 inch at the right of my paper, just lightly. Slide your ruler over to the left side of the paper, as far as you can slide it, and mark 1 inch down as well. And then you'll turn your ruler and connect those two dots. Because this is a little bit longer of a page, I can use a longer ruler to mark those edges. Line it up with both marks and draw across, very lightly. We have our 1-inch border at the top, and now the goal is to work on the sides to draw 2-inch borders. I will turn my ruler this way and I'll mark 2 inches in from the side of the paper, and then slide your ruler down and mark 2 inches at the bottom of your paper. What you can do then is turn your ruler so it matches up with both of those marks and draw down. Draw towards yourself, barely press your pencil against the paper. There's my 2-inch border, and if I erase this line, you can see that it is the border there. I'm going to turn my paper and draw the bottom border, but first I need to make my marks. On this side, again, I need a 2-inch mark. 1, 2. And on the other side, I will mark 2 inches in as well. 1, 2. Use your ruler to match up those dots and draw across. My last edge will be with the perforated edge. You can match up the 0 with the perforation and mark 2 inches in. Slide your ruler down and mark 2 inches in from the perforation, and then connect that line lightly. You can see we have the border of the page, and it should be 10 inches wide. If you match your ruler up, you should measure 10 inches all the way to the bottom. It should be the same width, and it should be 8 inches high. We have 8. If we slide it over, we have 8 also. The next step is to draw your grid lines. We are drawing 1-inch marks so that we have 1-inch squares for the grid. So we'll have 10 squares this way, 8 squares the other way. Match up your ruler at the 0 mark and mark every inch lightly across the paper. Slide your ruler down. Make sure the ruler is still lined up with the 0 at the edge of your box, and do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And now turn your ruler and connect those lines. Make sure they match up. Barely drag your pencil across the paper. We don't want these to be too visible because you will have to erase them when you color with colored pencil. So be as light as possible. I'm drawing a little bit darker so you can see. Double check to make sure your ruler matches up with both lines. I match it up with the top up here, make sure it matches. Match it up with the bottom and then double check the top and the bottom to make sure the ruler did not move. So now I have my grid lines this way. You're going to do the same thing. I'm going to flip my ruler and mark every inch down the side of this side. Make sure your ruler matches the 0. Slide it over, do the same thing. Now I will connect those dots very carefully so I'll have perfect squares. I have my grid and I'm ready to draw my contours with my drawing. I printed this photograph and you will place your 8 by 10 inch grid on top of your photograph and you'll see that it has a little extra space at the bottom, which is okay. Just line up your grid where you think it should match and you're ready to draw each contour line accurately on your paper. One thing that is helpful to do is to mark a code across the top and side of your grid, the transparent grid. So what I'm going to do is mark A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and 1 through 8 down the side. And on my sketchbook paper, I'm going to do the same thing lightly. Oops, I need to write A through J. Now when I place my grid on top of my picture, I will know that this little kid's head starts in 1C and goes down into C3 as well. Make sure before you start drawing, you take a piece of masking tape, 2 pieces, and you hinge it at the top of your drawing. I want my kid to be right there. I'm going to line up the grid with the top of the image and put 2 pieces of tape that wrap over the transparency and around to the back on both sides so that you have a hinge. That way you can move this if you want to see the drawing, the photograph without the grid over top, or put it back over so that you can see where places are on the grid, the different shapes. Another thing that will help you draw accurately and keep track of your squares is to use a part of a viewfinder. You can either use the whole one to focus in on squares, certain squares at a time, or you can just use one part of one to keep track of where you are on your drawing. I'm going to look at where the head is, and I'm going to start in C1. So you can see my drawing here. C1 is where the little part of the head starts. So as I'm drawing my contour, I'm going to make sure I draw this part of the head in C1. C1. Draw lightly. It goes down, angling to the left, down a little bit past the halfway mark of 2, but this is almost the center of C2. The nose and the lips are just barely in the corner of C3, so I can move my viewfinder down there because I'm in that square now. And I'm going to go back up to grid D1, and I'm going to draw that little part of the head that comes down here, and the hair comes out into D2 about halfway, and I have some hair there, and then the jacket. Comes down with the shoulders. The shoulders come into E2. So as you can see, I'm looking square by square what shapes and what lines are in each square, and I'm drawing it a little bit larger on this paper. You will need to draw all of your basic shapes and lines, so this background as well, this edge of the sidewalk, probably not all this texture. You'll be able to show the texture and shadows with colored pencil, but draw the basic shapes like the boots, the pants, the sweatshirt, this line here, maybe the edge of the puddle. Draw those with pencil first so that you know what to color when you're ready for colored pencil.